Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for the third of our three-part positive peace conversations, co-hosted by District 5040 and Mediators Beyond Borders. And I would like to introduce the co-hosts of our meeting tonight, Martin from Mediators Beyond Borders, Peter Rofe, who is doing our tech support, Peter Clark. Where are you, Peter Clark? Peter's looking after our chat this evening. And I would also like to welcome Valarie Wafer from RI, and I will be welcoming Valarie a little more fully in a couple of minutes. Um, she's going to give us a bit of a presentation. I'd like to introduce our 5040 team and our facilitators. Please raise your hands as I call your name. Nancy Eidsvik, John Anderson, Dean Say, Annette Martin, and I've already mentioned Peter Rofe and Peter Clark.
Tanya Hall.
Thank you very much. Sorry?
Tanya Hall.
And Tanya Hall. Yes, you're absolutely right. I beg your pardon. I wonder why I didn't have you down here, Tanya. Maybe that was when you were chasing down
Just a shrinking violet.
No, hardly. No, she was probably batting her eyelashes at the policeman at that stage of the game. Yeah, so what we're looking forward to sharing a program this afternoon and having a really good discussion, as Martin has indicated, so that we can really listen and understand one another better. And we're going to be discussing the challenge to DEI in a divided world. Before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about Valarie. And because she's absolutely an amazing individual. Valarie, I started to read your bio information and couldn't believe all the things that you've been involved in. 2 seconds so that I can locate it. So Valarie's had, and I'm not going to read it all, but Valarie's had a 27-year career as a Tim Hortons restaurant owner, which everybody knows is one of Canada's iconic restaurant brands. And her restaurant operations were widely recognized for their inclusive hiring practices, particularly for the employment of people with disabilities and access issues. Valarie joined Rotary in 2005. And she served in a number of senior positions within Rotary, including as vice president in the year 2021-22. Valarie and her husband, Mark, are Paul Harris Fellows, Bequest Society members, major donors to the Rotary Foundation. In 2012, Valarie received the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal in recognition of her leadership with the economic case for inclusion in Canada and inclusive hiring initiative that was adopted by provincial and federal governments. So many of us know Valarie as the chair of the DEI Task Force that RI started about 4 years ago now, I think, Valarie. And she is now the chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Council. So Valarie, welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us this evening.
Well, thanks, Ardith. And I just love looking around all these squares and seeing so many friends and familiar faces. So it's so nice to be with you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be invited to speak to this group. I feel like I am surrounded by positive peace and positive peace champions, literally, allies and change makers. So, I love the conversation that you're having. I love the safe space that you've created so that Rotarians from Canada, from the US, cross borders, wherever they're joining us from tonight, can feel like they are part of this conversation, and we feel that we can speak freely and openly. And I think that that's how we change mindsets and how we change culture. And I think it's really important. So I want to thank you for all the work you're doing and for having this series of positive peace conversations. And so today, Ardith has asked me to come and speak about challenges of diversity, equity, and inclusion in a divided world. So I thought I would just give you a little bit of an overview of Rotary's stand and Rotary's work in this space, and what's next for us, and how we're going to navigate some of the challenges that we certainly are facing in North America. So let me just start by saying, over the years, Rotary has taken intentional steps to welcome members of all backgrounds. As you know, diversity has been one of our core values from the very beginning, and we've been focusing on increasing access for historically underrepresented groups and trying to foster those environments where we recognize and value the diverse perspectives that everybody brings. We know that we're only stronger when we bring those different perspectives and everybody has a voice, everybody feels that they can contribute, that they can show up and bring, I like to say, bring everything that you are every day to everything you do. And that's when we are the strongest. So we've done this in Rotary at the international level by listening to our members, because I think if we don't listen and we don't ask, then we are looking in the mirror, we're seeing the same thing, that how we perceive ourselves, and that's just living in a vacuum, and that's really not the way we move forward. So we started by listening to our members through global surveys. We asked our members about their experience in Rotary, asked them how they feel about pathways to participation, pathways to leadership, equitable opportunities, how they feel when they walk through the door at their club. Do they feel that their community is represented in their club? And how they feel Rotary might lead them in this space as well, and do they feel supported? So as Ardith mentioned, in 2020, when I was on the board, I was asked to chair the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. And every year we had to ask or go to the board for renewal. We weren't a standing committee. And you can imagine what would have happened if we had to face our membership and say, you know, Rotary had not approved us for another year. And you know, we've come this far, we've told our members we are supporting them, that we value them, and then all of a sudden it's not going to be a focus of Rotary anymore. So I'm really, really pleased that after 3 years of being a task force, we went back to the boards actually, because now we are a joint advisory council in diversity, equity, and inclusion, to not only to the Rotary International Board, but to the Rotary Foundation trustees. Because as we know, the trustees, the foundation, and Rotary is everything that we do, whether it's our projects, everything should be looked at through the lens of equity and inclusion. So I'm really thrilled that this is now a committee or a council that everyone can apply to be on, and we rotate our members every 3 years. I've been on this for 5 years, and I am rolling off this committee as of June 30th. It's time for some fresh voices. We continue to add new perspectives. We're limited to 8 members, so we can't have every geographical region of Rotary represented. And so by having new members join and roll off every year, we can add those geographical representations that maybe we weren't able to have in other years. So we've taken the data from those listening exercises that I described, and we provided resources, and I always call it maybe tone from the top, right? So we need, as leaders in Rotary, to provide resources and a commitment from our leadership, our board of directors, and our trustees. So we know that a change in culture is not going to be mandated. It's not going to happen through policy or corrected through policy. It starts at the club level. It starts in our communities and our members and our conversations such as this. But we also know that that leadership voice is really important. So we started listening to our members. We looked at the data. and we said, okay, what are the next steps for Rotary International? What are the next steps for our advisory council? Now, we launched 2 surveys, and the second one actually allowed us to break down what our members were saying by region. And we know that the conversations look very different around the world, just like Rotary clubs look very different around the world. It can also look very different across town. Let's be serious here. So we decided that we needed to take advantage of the regional data, and we needed to support our members where they are. So one of the first recommendations we made, and I'm so thrilled that many of the districts that are here have DEI committees at the district level. And that was the first thing we asked the board to recommend to our district governor team, that the 3 years of governors would get together and they would appoint a chair to these diversity, equity, and inclusion committees at the district level to ensure that there was continuity and that they reported their chair to Rotary so that we could then connect with those chairs and make a difference. So I'm really thrilled that over 74% of our districts around the world have named a committee chair. And I want to compliment Ardith and District 5040 and all of you, but specifically the work that you've been doing in the last years to take the right steps and connect with clubs. And I know in conversation with Ardith, she said that they've connected with over 49 clubs in District 5040 to have those critical conversations, some learning sessions. You know, I did a little bit of a search and I saw your webpage, honestly, hands down, honestly, and I'm one of the best diversity, equity, inclusion web pages that I've run into, and I've shared that with the advisory council as a great example that we can emulate and share with our global chairs around the world. The reason we want to connect with our global chairs is exactly that. We're not going to rewrite all the resources that you need. They need to happen at that club and district level, just like your web page, just like the fact that you've done surveys and you've used some of those Rotary International resources, but also developed a lot of your own that really speak to the region that you come from and the members in the communities that you all come from. So, we started, we did some focus group activities this year with our DEI chairs, and we listened and we want to connect them. There's a desire for them to meet more often. They haven't connected with other districts or other regions in their zones. We did it by zone. They're starting to share some best practices and resources. And this is something that the advisory council is going to continue to capitalize going forward. So that's kind of the work that we've done. It kind of sets the goals of where we want to go and how we want to connect regionally. And I also want to recognize that in today's turbulent political climate and geopolitical landscape, we're seeing the news every day. It's at the touch of our fingers on our phones, and it's very inundated and can be very overwhelming. I know that sometimes we need to take a little bit of a breath and a little bit of a break and remember to take that walk or go into our yurt, like Martin just looks so comfortable in his yurt, and find that peaceful place, because we're faced with polarization, social unrest, conflict, and the narratives that just keep shifting, and they're not always positive. But we need to remember that we're Rotarians and that Rotary can be that stabilizing force by upholding our core values of respect, diversity, leadership, and of course, service above self. We need to encourage these open conversations. We need to resist the divisive rhetoric, and we need to stay grounded in our mission. And that we are always united rather than divided. So I think we have the opportunity to model inclusive leadership and promote healing and collaboration among communities, especially, with what we're being bombarded with on a regular basis. Now, how has Rotary kind of responded to this divisive and this, nature of conversation? And I want to read part of a message that was sent to Rotary members, and you may or may not have received it. I know it's on rotary.org, but it's a letter dated April 11th from RI President Stephanie Urchik, Trustee Chair Mark Maloney, and CEO John Hugo. And this is in their words, and they say, we want to assure you that in times of uncertainty, one thing is certain, our mission and values remain unchanged. Rotary is a force for good in the world because we are deeply embedded in communities. We will continue to provide service to others, promote integrity, and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace. The ideals of service, fellowship, and diversity have enabled us to transcend boundaries of all kinds. We bring people of all backgrounds together, foster collaboration, and make our communities stronger. For 120 years, Rotary has thrived through 2 world wars, through Cold War, through multiple deadly pandemics, and we have endured and strengthened because we adhere to our mission and to the values. In times like these, we once again are reminded of the strength of Rotary and the importance of supporting our organization. They then went on to talk about our global polio eradication efforts and our areas of focus and how each of those are so deeply embedded in who we are and our values. So, you know, one of the things I like to say and how we can move forward and how we can maybe, you know, there's a lot of angst around the acronym, and I'm trying very actively not to use the acronym. It is definitely being politicized. We hear statements like, you know, there's a plane crash. Well, it must have been a DEI hire, or there's something else that happens. And so many of us, I'm beyond shaking my head. It hurts me. It hurts me. I think it hurts a lot of us to our core. But I think we can lean into our values and we can speak to our action plan. And I know we're all very familiar with our strategic priorities and our action plan. And one of the things that we can really lean into is our two priorities I like to speak about, but one is enhanced participant engagement. You know, under there, we look to support our clubs to engage members. You know what? After each of these kind of points, I'm going to say diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what we're talking about is exactly diversity, equity, and inclusion. And maybe we need to take a little bit of a breath and not use those terms. If those terms resonate where you are, absolutely go for it. And I'll give you a few examples of people who are really leaning into that. But getting back to participant engagement, enhancing that, develop a participant-centered approach to deliver value. That means talking to our members, finding out what they want their Rotary experience to look like. And again, it's about having those conversations. It's about allowing everybody to bring everything that they are to everything that they do. Offer new opportunities for personal and professional connection. I think we can all open up opportunities for leadership, for non-traditional, you know, roles, or for people who don't always fit the traditional maybe view of what we think a leader should look like in Rotary, and provide those leadership development and skills also. Expand our reach, another one of our priorities, speaks directly, grow and diversify our membership and our participation, create new channels into Rotary, and increase Rotary's openness and appeal. So leaning into that global strategy and language will ensure we're all on the same page. Now, Ardith and I spoke, and I mentioned to her that last week I was in person at Rotary International for our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Council. We meet once a year, and you can appreciate the rich conversation that we have versus when we meet on Zoom. And everyone, you know, really shared what's happening in their region. If you're not familiar with who's on the advisory council, just go to rotary.org and you'll see who our members are. But it was really interesting because as we're really thinking about regionalization and we're thinking about supporting our members and our DEI chairs in the district, we decided to reach out to some of our regional offices. And we reached out to Zurich and we reached out to our Brazil office. And we had our club and district support people report to us what they're hearing from their members and some of the challenges. And they're facing some of the political backlash they're obviously hearing in the news, you know, some of the conversation, the rhetoric is the only way to really describe it. But it was really interesting also to hear from our Zurich office, who said their members are leaning into diversity, equity, inclusion. It resonates with them, and they really want to feel empowered, and they're pushing back a little bit. And it was interesting because at the advisory council, we spent some time talking about history and how at times in history, people remained silent, people didn't have a voice, and how in hindsight or looking back, we all recognize that we have a human rights responsibility, an individual responsibility. We have a voice, and we need to use our voice, and we need to push back. And so as we can, according to our safety or our business, I mean, we have a responsibility to be citizens of the world. And this is what we heard from the Zurich office, is that they are actually leaning into and want to strengthen the language and use diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then, of course, we know that it is banned in the United States, and we can't use these, and we will be penalized for using this language. So we have to realize that our organization right now is based in the US, and that we could be a potential target to some backlash for, hard to believe, everything that we stand for, right? I mean, environment, peace. If you look at the banned words, it's everything that we stand for. Women, you know, supporting health for childcare and education and literacy. And so we need to lean into everything that we have done in the past, everything that we're going to do in the future. We can't hide behind, you know, or make up, you know, different terminology just to hide behind what we stand for. But we also have to be smart about this, because there is a tangible threat to our organization, even as a charity, and our 501(c)(3) status in the US. And so we need to be aware that we need to be pragmatic and we need to be smart. So what I will encourage everyone to do is to use the language that resonates with your members. And perhaps that acronym has been overused, and we can start telling our stories and our personal experiences and talking about inclusion and talking about how we can make Rotary more inclusive, accessible, without using maybe some of those trigger words, and using those real life stories that nobody can take away your personal experience and your stories. And every time we hear one, we learn and we grow. So that would be kind of my, you know, advice to anyone who feels they can't use these words or can't use this acronym. But I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate you for all that you do. And if you're leaning into that terminology, I'm applauding you. Lean into that terminology. If you can't, then find a way. Be strategic, be stealth, and still lean into everything that we stand for. So I'll stop there and turn it back to Ardith.
Valarie, thank you so much. We've heard a number of questions from Rotary members in District 5040 over the last probably 6 months or thereabouts. Where is RI coming from as far as DEI is concerned? Is this just politicized in the States, or is it politicized here in Canada? What do we do as clubs and districts and regions? And I think that your words tonight have really helped to give us a sense of how we lean into this and concentrate on our values and the humanity of being Rotarians in a global organization and a global environment. I can't thank you enough for giving us that context for the rest of our discussions. We probably have time for a couple of questions. If anybody would like to ask Valarie a question, please do so now. This is your big chance.
I'm going to drop that. I'm just looking at my emails. I'm going to drop that letter into the chat box.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, it was addressed to dear Rotary members. I didn't get it, and we did bring this up with the staff, because I highlighted this letter in my opening comments to the committee last week. and many of the committee members had not received it at all. So I'll
I
find out.
don't recall having seen it
Yeah.
either. So that'd be
Yeah.
terrific.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just, it is posted on our district homepage, and all members got it in the past bulletin from last month. So, but it's there if you
Great
want to.
job.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have to tell you, your comments about our webpage, much of that is the result of Peter Roaf's hard work, Valarie. So thank you very much, and I'm sure Peter thanks you. So I think then you're very welcome to stay with us if you wish, and otherwise, if you need to go, I'm conscious
John
of the
Barry
time.
has a question.
Sorry. Oh, John Barry has. Sorry, John. I can
Yeah.
only see part of you.
Oh, okay. Well, no worries. And hi, Valarie. I'm going to ask a bit of a question that's more comment and ask for your comment. The thing is that I was DG in 22-23 and found it very easy to champion DEI and did so as we went around with the clubs and so on. But what's happened, as you point out, is it's become polarized. And, it started the world, as far as I was concerned, as a unifying force, something that brought people together. And sadly, where it is a polarizing thing in some places right now. But I think the why is it polarizing is really important. And I think one of the reasons that it's polarizing is because people in the name of DEI have done some things that are pretty radical. And it has encouraged people to, because obviously in the States where it's so polarized, that's all you need for people on the other side to take an example and blow it out of all proportion and say, this is they've gone mad. This is the woke crowd on the left. They've gone mad. They're championing DI. They're championing, and the diversity side, things like affirmative action. You get into things like, the Supreme Court has now said that that's not okay. And there's a reasoned case here that can be made that this is based on racial discrimination. And we have people that are champions of DEI that will curl their hair and be abhorred at that and say that it's the exact reverse. I take that point. But the thing is, we also have to be open and tolerant to different points of view. And so if somebody is going to argue that, as the Supreme Court has, that you shouldn't discriminate on the basis of race in that sense, that there's at least a reasoned argument you have to listen to and maybe agree to disagree, but not be at the polls and say, these people are terrible. These are these awful right-wing people. And that's the same as people saying these are these awful left-wing people that champion DEI. So I'd ask for your comment.
Yeah. Well, let me jump in, John. Thanks for the question in part of it. This is exactly the kind of conversation we want to have in our breakouts.
In our breakout groups.
So I want to just be mindful of doing this in plenary because these work in small groups. And Valarie, definitely want you to be a part of that. But the idea is to decentralize the conversation of instead of having one person have all the answers, but to go to our fellow Rotarians in these small breakouts and discuss it with them. And so thank you for the question. I think it sets up a lot of the sentiment of where we can go in with this. Ardith, you want to keep us with the structure? And Janice, I see your hand up. But
I think Janice has her hand up.
but I really want to bring comments into the
We need to move into the breakout groups.
Yeah, into the breakout groups is critically at hand. So if we can create that structure and then please save your comments and feedback. It's exactly what we want you to be doing, is having a reaction to Valarie's words. So thank you, Valarie, for doing that for us. And let's have that conversation in the breakouts.
And Valarie, you're welcome to stay with us or to leave whenever it suits.
Okay.
And on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for your comments.
That's great to see you. And thank you again for everything you're doing.
Great. Okay, let's move forward. We're going to have Peter Clark is going to enter the questions.
Janice has her hand up for a question.
Yes, well, the questions are being addressed in the breakout groups.
Unless you have a structural question, Janice, do you have a question about the process?
No, it was following on what John said, and I just hope that the whole group appreciates, because my background's law, and I don't know why this isn't being challenged. Anyway, I can talk to it in the breakout groups, but
Great.
I think it is we've got to hit it where it is.
Yeah.
And everything Valarie said, we can't live with this. This is
Yeah.
wrong.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janice. So here are the questions that your facilitators are going to be addressing, and you're going to be addressing in your breakout groups. And these will stay in the chat, and then they will be moved into the breakout chats once the groups are established by Peter Rofe. And we're also going to talk about our agreements, which we've done in our past sessions as well. And Peter Clark is going to post those in the chat. And many of you will recognize the agreements from our other sessions. And have you, there they are. Right. So we don't have to deal with each one of them, but these are just agreements that we have with one another as we go into our breakout groups and our discussions as we listen and learn from one another. We want everyone to be open-minded and to expand our understanding of one another's views. And we want to have time for reflection and really listening and valuing others' views more than reacting to them. And this is a topic that lends itself, I think, to a lot of reaction. And acceptance, taking in what you're hearing and pausing before response. Curiosity, seeking to understand rather than persuade. And I think this is probably, of all of them, this is one of my favorites. And the others you can read yourself. Authenticity is a good one, speaking from your heart and your own truth and personal experience. So I'll just let you read those over for a moment. Wondering if there are any others that you might want to suggest that aren't in this group. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had some great discussions. The ones that I listened to sounded really good. So I'm looking forward to hearing from your reporters. We know that the reporters are going to report out the top 2 items that you discussed. And so, John, why don't we hear from your group first?
John, you're muted.
Roland is
about
going
that.
to, Roland
Sorry
is
about
going to
that.
report
I-
back.
Roland is going to report out on the top 2 of 15 items that we could have reported on.
Oh my goodness.
15.
Okay, so the top 2
Just
is
Roland, just before we do that,
Oh, there's
can
one.
we ask that we post the notes in the chat?
All 15 of them?
No, the 2.
I've already done that, Ardith.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nancy. Okay, go ahead, Roland. Thank you.
sorry. So the first one was the challenge of how to be assertive when you're dealing with people who may not have the same views as you. How do you find that common ground and advanced discussion? And then the second point was that we should go back to our respective clubs and instigate a discussion about DEI and see whether or not there are people who have opposing or different views as to what DEI means and how to work with that and get like a framework.
Very good.
Great. That's excellent. Thank you very much. Dean, how about your group, your reporter?
Joe will report. Joe?
I'm trying to unmute. You think I'd have it down pat by now? All right, we kind of focused on questions 2 and 4, and we decided that the our 2 key takeaways were that what's being said with this politicizing of DEI is not true. People don't understand, and they're being lied to. There's a lot of blaming going on. We need to look at the historical roots about what happens with this kind of thing, i.e. what happened in World War II with the genocide, and that it also is based around unresolved racial issues with racism that have been historical and really haven't been dealt with, and they're unresolved. And the other piece was that we need to hold the course as Rotarians and in our personal lives. We need to be public with what Rotary is really all about and stay committed to DEI in the process. And that's it.
Good comments. Great. I'm trying to take notes as well. Thanks very much. Annette, how about your group?
My awesome group is Karen is reporting out.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just hit the two highlights because it fits with what Joe just said. We felt that DEI is misunderstood by many people, and maybe we need to think of it differently and maybe get rid of that kind of acronym. And Maria in our group, who deals with a peace park in Waterton Lakes, one of the first ones she said in Canada, or maybe in North America, she said maybe we need to look at different ways of defining it, like so it's not so polarized. And Maria, we feel the DEI is actually, it was intended to create fairness, and unfortunately it has been misconstrued and has created unfairness. But the main point that we agreed with Maria was she said that we should educate our club members at a meeting or whatever on the 8 pillars of positive peace, and show how like what was Maria's was about being kind to your neighbor or whatever, and show how you could insert DEI into each one of those pillars of peace. So it was like a good structure and good to educate people, and then get examples of what you could do that is DEI within the pillars of positive peace.
Great, thank you. And Maria, I thought I recognized you from the United for Good session on the 21st of May, and I enjoyed your comments about the Waterton Peace Park. So
I just want to clarify, Waterton Glacier International Peace Park was the first international peace park in the world.
In the world, yes.
Really?
Yeah. And it crosses both Canada into Canada and the United States. So
Waterton is Canadian and Glacier is US.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Tanya, what about your group?
And for my group, we have the fabulous Gregory Muirhead will be speaking.
There you go. Let me unmute it. Yeah, thanks, Ardith. We tend not to speak we didn't spend any time talking about DEI, but more or less we just talked about the individual person. Some of the things that we found is that over time, people's feelings get hurt, but when you look at it, really a lot of the problems come down to cultural problems. And a lot of the pushback that we get are basically routed around international issues. When you look at the individual person, you got to realize that we're all equal in every way. Our economic standings may be different, but we're all equal. And we need to look at and understand that. And one of the best ways that we can do this to move ahead is to go out and spend time with other clubs. I mean, it's so easy here, especially like in BC, right? I mean, Vancouver especially. It's nice to go out to other clubs and just experience their culture. But really, that's what it came down to was to understand that the people are individuals with their own, they're a real person, just as we are and as I am, but also get to know these people and accept them exactly like that.
Thanks. Can you elaborate just a little bit, Greg, on your group's comments that all people are equal? Because there are those who wouldn't agree with that statement.
Really? How can that be? How can we not be all equal? I mean, really?
Do you think
How,
that
how,
do you
I
think
don't
that
understand
people
that.
do you think people who are economically challenged feel equal to those who are not?
Okay, is that person who is economically challenged, are they facing issues that they have to deal with every day?
Yes.
Okay, if I am filthy rich, am I facing issues that I have to deal with every day?
But they're not challenging from an economic standpoint. I mean, we're talking about people who don't have enough don't have enough food on the table.
And we as an organization should help those people any way that we can.
Yes, I agree totally. But it was just your comment about all people being equal that
Well, I don't understand how you could say we're not all equal. I don't understand that.
Anybody in Greg's group want to, Tanya?
I think the reference is that it's on a side that what Greg is referring to is that he considers all people equal.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So not that I mean, we all have different situations that we deal with, but because we discussed a lot about different nationalities and people in different positions in life, and how even if you go to somewhere internationally and you look at, and somebody in that country might look at people in outside countries as, I don't know if I'm explaining this very well. So we might consider somebody in another country to be less than for whatever I personally know, but let's say I do. And then in that country, they're looking back at us and looking at us and saying, oh, well, they're less than or greater than. But in our opinion, that's not
true.
That's not true. Does that make sense?
Like, I think maybe there's a twist on that too.
Unless I started at the beginning, I probably can explain it now.
What I wrote down was, it was in answer to the question, peace is achieved when there is equal understanding, is how I wrote it down. So that would be the goal, that would be the ideal. Doesn't mean it exists, but that's, the question was, how do you get to peace and in your community? And you get to peace kind of when there's more equal footing, is how I heard it.
Yeah, that I think is a good one. Joe, you had your hand up, I think, and then Karen.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on what you said, Ardith, about Greg's comment, because I was sitting here going the same as you, going, but we're not equal. As a human being, we are equal, but our lives are definitely not equal when you start talking about social economic status and stuff. So it depends on how you define that equality.
Yeah.
You know, I'm equal to my neighbors, but you know what? They might be filthy rich and I might be barely making my mortgage payment. So we're not equal on that playing field. And there's so many playing fields that we each are on in our lives.
Yeah. So to want to just jump in real quick, I think it's enough that it was an important part for that discussion in that group. And as soon as we take it out of the group context, it's going to change a little bit of the meaning. So I don't want us to get stuck talking about what equality means in group session, because it was meaningful for them, for their conversation at the moment they were having it. So let's keep moving with the rest of the groups. Thanks.
Agree. I think we've been through all our groups. Have we not?
Yep.
1, 2. Yes, we have, Martin. And have we got the reporters have their comments in the chat? Good.
We have group 3, and I'm not sure which group this one is, but Elaine's group.
Elaine Cameron?
Yeah, so we have two of the recorders in that.
The first one was group 2, Peter. The first one that went in was
I don't see that.
John,
So I know that you said you put it in, but I don't see it
I
here.
don't see it either.
So it might have got stuck in the breakout room chat.
Oh,
I'm not
maybe,
sure.
because that's when I
Yeah.
recorded it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think there are two reports from group 3. My understanding was that as the recorder, I needed to put one in, but Joe also put one in. So
it's just the reporters, Elaine, but
sorry.
okay, no, that's fine. But the groups that haven't got theirs in, if they're stuck in the breakout chats, maybe you could put them.
So
repeat.
I was, Greg was group 5 and I can't, my computer is not recognizing anything. I can't change my name. I can't do anything. So I can't put anything into the chat. I tried.
Oh, that's too bad.
Karen, are you able to put it in, or do you want me to put it in for our group, for group 4?
Who's
group 5.
speaking? Who is speaking to me?
Annette was speaking and
Yeah,
for group 4.
I don't want to put it in the chat. No, go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll put it in. Okay.
Thanks, Annette. So Tanya, your group is in?
No. So perhaps Suzanne, can you?
that's
copy
Greg.
some
Greg,
notes then
I'm
for Mark?
looking where to put, I didn't know, so I'm looking now where to put, I'm in the chat, it says group 4, I'm scrolling down. Do I just then add group 5?
Yep, just typing in a message at the bottom underneath the names. You see that?
No, I don't see group 5.
Oh, there is no group
No.
5?
There is
You'll
no
just
group
put,
5.
you'll say 5 at the top of your message and then type it.
So there's a bar that says meeting group chat,
Yeah,
and you would type below that.
okay, thank you, got
Click
it.
on it and then once you start typing.
And then when you're
Got
done, push
it.
the little blue arrow on the
Okay,
right hand corner bottom.
you just want 2 items of what we've written? Okay. Okay.
Okay, are we good?
All right, fantastic.
Great, thank you very much. Peter Clark, you're going to put the survey in the chat as well, right?
Oh.
It's in the chat. It's a link.
So
Says
before you leave, but
forums.gle.
I want to ask Martin before we do that, Martin, if you could talk a little bit about what is upcoming in Calgary as far as positive peace is concerned, and maybe just talk about, Maria mentioned it, she mentioned the 8 pillars of positive peace. Maybe just talk a little bit about the partnership between Rotary and IEP and your involvement in some of those projects.
I want to be mindful of time. Do we allow for 2 hours for this session, or is it?
Yes, we do. We've allowed till 7 o'clock. So we have, we
Okay.
have another 15 minutes or so.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so this series is called Positive Peace Conversations. And we've done that to sort of look at, how do we build positive peace through activities? So there's a lot of discussion around the 8 pillars of positive peace and how to measure what we're doing. And so this is an attempt to put that into action so that we can address what are the areas of positive peace of those 8 pillars that we need to address, and our ability to be able to talk about them and bring people in to those conversations. So I myself am a positive peace activator in addition to being a peace fellow. And so that's a program that was designed with IEP, the Institute for Economics and Peace, and Rotary to train positive peace activators to work with clubs and districts to build positive peace within their in that club and district setting. And so what you've just participated in is one of those programs of how we're hoping clubs use this tool and identify 8 pillars of positive peace, and each club can hold 8 of these over a span of a year or 2 years, and to be able to talk amongst themselves with the goal of being able to talk within their community. So we want to be able to host these in our communities and have clubs and districts be the hosts for these conversations to bring outside members into this into these conversations And so we can create a sort of a mutual responsibility for building positive peace in our communities.
Thanks, Martin. There is a really good one-pager on the IEP's research that they've done, and they've empirically proven that they can increase peacefulness in a community in long-lasting and resilient ways. And as Martin says, this data that the Institute for Economics and Peace has developed is now being utilized in peace projects around the world. Martin, I think you've recently been dealing with a club in South Africa, haven't you? Martin?
In that case, no, it's not a club. It's there's 4 different districts that were part of a peace conference, and we've, a peace global grant, and we've trained over 100 community mediators that include both Rotarians and community leaders to be able to hold these conversations across the 4 districts. So something similar to what you're doing in British Columbia, and now between the 4 districts in Canada, we're doing across 4 districts in Southern Africa. So not just South Africa, but Lesotho, Limpopo, and other countries in Southern Africa. So that's happening there. Yeah.
Great. And do you have a sense of what people can look forward to at the International Convention in Calgary?
Yeah, for those who are going to Calgary, there is a peace park within in the center, and we're going to be hosting a positive peace conversation there. In the park, we'll have a booth close by, but yeah, I'll be giving at least one talk and negotiating for time for us to hold an hour-long conversation in the park.
So people who are attending people who are attending the convention will be able to attend?
Anyone in the House of Friendship, yeah. So you don't even have to register for the whole convention. You can just get into the House of Friendship and you can participate.
That's good to know, because I think, when there's 25,000 or however many Rotarians in one place, it might be hard to find out what's going on when.
Maria has a question.
Thanks, Maria.
It's not a question. I'd like to add to what Martin said. So what we're talking about is the Peace Pavilion that was done by Al Jubit's Foundation, which started the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And it is a highly scheduled stage, of which Martin spoke about one presentation. I'll be doing a presentation on Waterton Glacier International Peace Park. Former RI president will be coming to speak to open up the pavilion. There's going to be a photo booth there that will have a picture of Waterton looking down towards the United States. And what's really important is at the end of every day. So the House of Friendship will close at 6 o'clock every day. At 5:45 every day, we will be taking the Peace Pledge led by Waterton Glacier directors. So you can come down and you can actually take the Peace Pledge, which is, it changes you when you've looked into somebody else's eyes and you've said those words. So certainly we invite you to come down there and to discover what the schedule of that particular pavilion is. There's also an Indigenous pavilion that's happening down there, and it will be under the big teepee. So if you're in Calgary, please come to the House of Friendship and discover that there are stages there that have some very important conversations going on that you get to be a part of.
Oh, that's great, Maria. Thank you very much. Maria, what club are you with?
I'm with the District 5080 Peace Builders Passport Club.
5080 Peace Builders.
And I'm the founding co-chair of the 5080 Peace Committee, and I'm happy to go in and talk to any club about the 8 pillars of positive peace and how you can, in your district, become part of a peace builder club or a peace builder district.
Excellent.
Artist Suzanne has her hand up.
I did, I guess, and I apologize. I know you've met before and this is my first meeting, but I kind of am selfish in that I like to come to these presentations to have takeaways for what I can bring back to my club. And I'm pulling back, I just pulled up rather the 8 pillars of positive peace, and they're really high level, admirable goals. But when I go to those goals like sound business environment, a well-functioning government, pardon my French, holy hell, there's no way I can, for my club level, how do I do that? So I think maybe the conversation here is really focused on, our ideal to push governments worldwide into the ideal and peace. Am I wrong? I need help.
No, Suzanne, that's such a beautiful question. Are you okay if I take this question?
Sure, go ahead.
Suzanne, the entry point for any club, I think, is to just have somebody come in and explain the partnership between Rotary International and the Institute for Economics and Peace, and explain in a very broad sense what the 8 pillars are and how they can inform Rotary projects so that we bring it down to grassroots level. But I think just having somebody come in to explain that to your club members so that there's an understanding, and there's an understanding of if we're interested in peace building in our club, what's available to us, what are the tools, and how can we study with the IEP? Because Rotarians can actually study about the 8 pillars of positive peace. It's a free online course that you take at your own pace, and any Rotarian can take it. That's the starting place.
So you are suggesting that these pillars should apply at the club level to create peace, I guess, small p, in the club.
That's going really deep in the conversation, because the question that was the answer to was, how does DEI partner with positive peace? And positive peace is about the 8 pillars of positive peace. So that was a high-reaching question. But I think your question is the more important question, which is how do we introduce it to the club? You introduce it to the club by simply saying, hey, if you're interested in peace building and what that's all about in Rotary terms, let's talk about the partnership with
Got it. Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Suzanne, do you have a peace committee in your club?
No.
No. That might be something that you might want to consider just as a starting point.
I mean, we're one of the clubs that's struggling right now, and I think we have a long list of things that would be beneficial, and that's what I'm hoping to take away from this experience, ideas to contribute as we evolve going forward.
And I think, thank you. Martin, you have a comment you'd like to make.
Yeah, so an easy one, and perhaps what Maria is referring to, there's a Positive Peace Academy. So if you just search Positive Peace Academy, it's free to Rotarians to take. So that gives you a good overview of what they mean by good governance in the context of a club. And good governance, by the way, can also mean how your family interacts with each other. And so it's meant to be applied on every level, interpersonal, intrapersonal. So we have conversations around what an interpersonal relationship of good governance means. And so you can really apply each of the pillars on all these different levels, but then it's not just international. That's the good governance one, and also low levels of corruption are often misunderstood because you ask, well, what do we have to do with, how a country operates? And it's really meant to be, how do you operate, within your club? And low levels of corruption can also mean just a standard of integrity, and keeping your word, and how we follow through and applying the 4-way test, not just to others, but to ourselves.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Yeah. So basically act as an example of what you'd like to see internationally.
Correct.
Yep. That helps. Thank you.
But also, Martin, if I may, one of the things that the 8 pillars help to do is to help to define a bit the direction and scope of a project that a club or district may wish to undertake, right? With either within a club or over a number of clubs or across a number of districts. It's, as you said, turning the pillars into action.
Yeah, it gives you a metric for sure.
Yeah. And I thanks for your offer, Maria, to speak to a club or district that may be interested in learning more about the work that you're doing and the presentations that you're making.
Well, I think Suzanne's question is really important because you asked me which club I belong to. The Passport Peace Builder Club grew out of a very small club that was fledgling, that was looking for what touches all of our hearts. And the word that came back was peace.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there it grew. So I think having somebody come into the club as a guest speaker to actually say, so in your club, what are you all passionate about? What is your passionate service?
Well, that sounds like full circle where we started off. I think one of the first things I heard you all say, it's if DEI is controversial, use the words that you mean. So integrate, well, maybe it's in there. Involve, use other words instead of DEI. And that sounds like what you're also saying.
Well, peace, belonging, caring, all our Rotary values, I think, could certainly fit in there.
And that's the thread, I think. Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
But Valarie also said, if DEI works for you, don't shy away from it.
Right.
Lean into it if it's what your club or your district wants to pursue. We're not, I know what's happening south of the border, and we're not exactly targets the way many of them are there, but we are part of an international charity organization that could be involved. So we need to be mindful of that. But
And may I ask, I don't want to monopolize, can I ask another question? I'm
Sure.
learning a lot from you guys. Did I hear Valarie up front say something like Rotary has to be careful because we are kind of basically being threatened in the States if we lean on DEI, if we kind of put the red flag in front of the bull, our 501c3 status could be threatened.
I think that's, I don't know if that's exactly what she said, but certainly they're being very mindful of what's going on around them and what's going on, in the environment at the moment. And I think that just being mindful and being careful and proceeding in a way that doesn't set up a target is important.
Janice
has her hand up.
Sorry, who has their hand up?
Janice, and you're gonna.
Janice has, but she's muted. So unmute yourself, Janice.
Hello. Okay.
There we go.
I think there has to be a line. I don't think that, and either it's the truth or it isn't. And at some point we've got to push back on the pushback. If it's not true, I mean, what is our role to completely compromise ourselves so that, I mean, all of these untruths can be taken as fact? And that really concerns me.
I agree, Janice. Why are we doing that? Why are we changing for that?
We shouldn't change.
We don't have to, according to Valarie.
Yeah.
As she said, if DEI, if the acronym of DEI and everything that DEI stands for in our districts and our club, if it works for us and the members of our club and our district, then we should continue with what we've been doing.
Well, so should RI, in my view.
Exactly.
They should be pushing
Yeah.
back. That's what Janice and I are saying.
I hear that, but RI is representative of a very large global organization, and they have to take into consideration that globalness, if there's such a word.
But it's only one country that's doing
Only
it. It's
one
not the
country.
rest of the world. So we won't resolve it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens at the convention.
Yeah, great.
More hands
Okay, we
up.
have several hands up. Elaine, use the hand up digitally so you
Yeah.
get in line.
Because I can't see them. Peter, maybe you have.
So Maria first, then John Barry, and then John Anderson, and after that, Elaine.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. What what I'm concerned about here is if DEI works for you. It's not about if DEI works for you, I don't think. It's about, does DEI communicate what you're wanting to communicate? DEI, when those of us who started working with it, worked with it, understood DEI to mean diversity, equity, and inclusion. We heard those terms. When we heard the term DEI, we heard diversity, equity, and inclusion. The question now is, when you're using the word DEI, what are you saying to the person? How are they receiving what you've just said? And the politicizing that's happened has created a situation where when you say DEI, the person hearing you might be hearing LBGTQ, et cetera, et cetera. That's what's politicized. So I think perhaps if we stop using the term DEI and we start saying what we really mean, I'm talking about diversity right now, and in that context, then there's no confusion in communication. But if we double down on using the term DEI, we're actually, I think, doing a disservice to what our message really is.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments.
John Barry.
Yeah, Maria, thank you. I was going down those same lines. I couldn't agree more in terms of where you're at. And the thing is that, incidentally, as far as the U.S. is concerned, let's remember that I understand some of where Valerie's come from, because in a number of places, quite a number of very significant places, the U.S. government has made illegal the use of the term DEI. And and by extension, some at least of what it stands for. And so I think we have to be careful that when we say we have to tell the truth, of course we have to tell the truth. And the thing is, by the way, if we're talking about different nomenclature, our four-way test is kind of a good thing that it has some values that have stood a little bit of time, and you know, and it's a safe place, I think, for us to be. But we also have to recognize that, as Maria is saying, that people are taking different interpretations of what it means by DEI, and they're indignant with their own truth, and their own truth may be valid. And that's what we have to accept, is that, yeah, we think they're misinterpreting and misunderstanding, but in their world, their truth is a deeply held personal conviction. And frankly, it might not, if we really get into the values and have the discussion, it might not be too inconsistent from our values, but we're not having that discussion. And so we're at polls.
Yeah, good point, John.
John Anderson's next.
Yeah.
And then
Thanks, Peter. My comment is that we should focus on Rotary's values. And the values of Rotary have not changed. And maybe the terms we use to describe them may have to change in certain areas, but the values have not changed. And if we agree on what those values, maybe that should be a discussion we have in our clubs. What are the values of Rotary? Why do we join Rotary? What is it all about? If people are members of an organization, they don't even know what its values are, then they're not going to be good Rotarians. We need to have that discussion and forget the nomenclature and everything else. Let's get into the values, and they have not changed. We still have those in Rotary. This is my comment.
Good comment, John.
And Elaine, you're up, I think.
Sorry, I couldn't get the little hand thing up. I agree with what you just said, and I wanted to pass on what Samara said in our group, which was a heartening thing. She said that an organization of nonprofits in the United States is reacting to some of what's happening there by making legal challenges. So they're pushing back by, attempting to respond through legal means, because a lot of what is actually being forced on people doesn't stand up to a legal challenge. And I also just wanted to say that I agree that there's no reason in sticking with the DEI language if it's actually an obstacle to having an open discussion and perhaps having people change their minds. But I do think it's a slippery slope. And once you begin to acquiesce to demands, around the use of language. You have to be really careful that you don't end up hiding what your values are.
It is a slippery slope, isn't it? Thanks for your comments, Elaine. So we have one more comment from Suzanne, and then I think we should probably wrap things up.
I'm
So,
thoroughly
and
enjoying this.
so-
Thank you, you guys, for this broad perspective. I'm looking up though, what are the core values of Rotary? And I'm almost chuckling. 2 of the 5: service, fellowship, diversity,
Yes.
integrity, and leadership. They're right in
Yep.
there in our core values. Whoa,
Yep.
so that, it's
Yep.
great. Thank you. This is wonderful.